Hello, Bridge Builders! I'm here with some exciting news. The first volume of interviews is now available on Amazon.com. The link can be found at EatLunchandBoardGame.com. I promise that all proceeds from sales of this book will go right back into this podcast and channel. Whether that is new and better audio equipment for the podcast or video equipment for the YouTube channel, or even more games to review, the money will not be wasted. Click over to Amazon and get your copy of Eat Lunch and Board Game The First Course today. And thank you for supporting the show.
Craig Smith and I met via a podcaster website, Ardry.io. The site helps podcasters meet other podcasters in similar genres. Craig and his company, The Big Picture People, work with companies to help bring them together and develop lines of communication. They do this through gamification. I, too, believe in building communication at the office via games. Mine are store-bought, his are made specifically for the company he is helping. Either way, gaming in the office was common ground. We talk about the usual topics, as well as his obsession with Star Wars toys and an 11-pound or 5-kilogram book he recently backed on Kickstarter about the original toys, how bad we both are at Blockus, and stories of people not wanting to come back to the office after the pandemic or lockdown. Some moved hours away, others moved states away, and still some, well, they immigrated to completely new countries altogether. Check it out.
Welcome back to Lunch and Board Game. I'm your host, Adam Collins, and with me today is podcaster and owner of The Big Picture People, Craig Smith. They bring people together in their offices to have conversations, and a lot of times through gaming. Craig, how are you doing this morning?
I'm really good, Adam. How are you?
I'm tired. I've had a long weekend at a board game convention, and then so it's 5:30 in the morning here, and what is that, about 12:30 in the afternoon over there?
Yeah, it's about it. Yeah, it's coming up to. We're sort of in the middle of our day here, so yeah, we're probably about 5 hours ahead of you, I think. Oh no, probably a bit further actually.
No,
so about
it's
7 hours ahead. Yeah. Gosh, I didn't realize it was 5:30. You are dedicated, especially on a Monday morning. So yeah.
Yeah. So I had a long vacation or a long weekend at a board game convention, and then I forgot about that when we scheduled this. So I'm like, well, here we go. So, Craig, tell us a little bit about The Big Picture People and what you do with that in the gaming community.
Sure. Yeah. Well, we as you said in your introduction, we help to get people together to have more effective conversations at work, and that's kind of be around a variety of different areas. It could be, we have a new strategy, we have a new vision, we maybe have some new values, or we've got something specifically technical that we want you to understand. Typically, as you probably know, managers, leaders sit you down, big long PowerPoint presentation, everybody's falling asleep, wants to get out of the room. What we do is we turn it into a more interactive conversation, and one of the tools that we use, amongst many other things, so visualization is a really big part of what we do, but we've found over the years is a simple game mechanic can be a really good way of getting people to interact with each other and sort of let their guard down and talk about things they wouldn't normally talk about with their workmates. So that's what we do.
That's awesome. And so we actually met over Audrey.io, which is a podcaster service where you can meet other podcasters if you want. If you just kind of look out. So that's how we've come across each other. And I was on your podcast, and now you're on my podcast. So the intent of Audrey.io is working. So if anybody if anybody at Audrey's listening, you did a good job.
Yeah, so it's good. It's a good matchmaking thing. And sometimes I get a lot of consultants who approach me who just say, hey, I've got this book that I've written and I want you to help me promote it through your podcast. And it's like, maybe not. But we had a kind of symbiotic thing. So that seemed like a good idea.
Yeah. So how did you get into gaming, Craig?
So me as a person, prior to from a business perspective, I mean, I've always been into games, and we were kind of having a little chat about this. I mean, I guess my aside from when I was a kid, and I used to play games like Haunted House and the Game of Life and Mousetrap, you know, for not particularly sophisticated games by any chalk, but still, you know, great games when I was a kid. But then, sort of in the early '80s, because I was a sort of a child of the sort of '70s and '80s, the kind of video gaming was where I really kind of got into, you know, home computers, the ZX Spectrum, and the kind of all the things that we oldies can remember, and then moving into, like, you know, the Commodore Amiga. And I've still got a PlayStation now. I still like playing video games, but also board games and anything. And I one of the analogies we use with when people are kind of going, would you use a game in a business context, is, you know, I always use the analogy, you know what it's like on Boxing Day or the day after Christmas when everybody puts their phones down, we get Monopoly out, and we spend 4 hours as a family kind of connected to each other. And it's that kind of dynamic that I think is really unique to physical board games that we really like. So I've played games all of my life, and I love them not only as just fun, but also as a social tool as well.
No, absolutely. I understand. Like, because I was on your show, and people who listen to my show know that's, I use them at work to bring the office together and to make the office seem smaller by just coming together at lunch, playing a game, and, getting to meet people that you wouldn't necessarily or ordinarily come across. And I find that, just like you said, putting the phone down and just sitting there across the table from each other, you realize, man, this person's not as scary as his title makes him out to be, or, it's, they're just a person too. And it's, it really does help bring people together. So
definitely, it's a great leveler, and we're all, you know, everybody likes to play, everybody has that playfulness, I think, and as long as, and that's one of the challenges we find, is not making the game mechanic become adversarial, because that kind of defeats the object. But everybody likes to play, and playing with someone is, as you sort of said, it's a leveler. It takes away, strips away any airs and graces, and we're just, just human beings at the end of the day, and it's great.
No, yeah. I mean, just finding out they're just regular people can be a big change in your outlook at work.
It's also quite interesting when people kind of drop their guard. You know, they've got this kind of persona of being this sort of, really passive, team player, and then you give them, and it's like they turn into this, the kind of the old Goofy cartoon where it's the driving personality. It's sort of this like foaming at the mouth and wanting to grab. Not that obviously that happens a lot, but yeah, it's quite interesting. You see these alter egos pop out.
Yeah, I've introduced the trophy at work, and all of a sudden it's like, ooh, I want to win that trophy. And so, these people that you think are these sweet little people that work in your office, all of a sudden they want that trophy, and they're going to get it.
Definitely.
So if I was able to take a flight, because I definitely can't drive to where you are, if I was going to fly over there, what is your current favorite game? What game is on your table right now?
Yeah, well, we through lockdown, when we were kind of caged up with my older kids who were in their sort of at the time we're in the late teens, or both in the 20s now. We had a kind of ritual of playing games every night. So I guess the go-to games that we discovered, or we're already in the cupboard, but we became our regular go-tos, were Quirkle. That became a massive and Blockers. Have you ever played Blockers?
Oh yes, Blockers.
I'm absolutely useless at Blockers. My kids just laugh because I every time I try a different strategy and it never works. So I've just kind of resigned myself to the fact that I will always lose on
There's
a 4
something
game.
about Blockers. I can't win either. It's just a puzzle.
It is.
I'm really good at puzzles.
Yeah.
But you call it Blockers, and I'm like,
yeah, it's just like this. I'm kind of like dyslexic when it comes to what the logic is behind how you play. My son is really good, and he just always wins. And I'm thinking, it's not just random. There's not just chance. And I know I've tried stretching out across the board to get to the other corner. I've tried staying in my own corner. I've tried going along the bottom, up the side, and it just never works. So it clearly isn't. So, but we still played it because it became the running joke that, like, you know, would I finish third or last again? And then Exploding Kittens. That's become a really popular game. We got the extension pack with the Imploding Kitten card in it, which if you've not got and you play Exploding Kittens, is fantastic. Adds another dimension to an already very, very peculiar card game. But yeah, good fun.
Yeah, that's hilarious though, because I don't normally win the games when I play, and it's not about winning. It's just, for me, it's about just playing and having fun. But man, yeah, it's something about Blockus, and I just don't. We don't mesh. I don't understand.
Yeah,
you hand me a puzzle, I can sit down and put together the 500-piece puzzle by myself in one sitting.
Yeah.
But you hand me Blockus where I'm just trying to, touch at corners, and I'm like, this is just the puzzle. Why can't I figure out how it goes together?
Yeah. I think I try and create cells that nobody else can get into, but of course they can, because it's the diagonals that connect. So you can't ever create a kind of area which you can just put all your own pieces in. And I think I'm always striving to do that, or to find a way of doing it, which is impossible. So
too many years of Tetris.
it is, yeah. And I've even just tried the kind of, just random put it down anywhere, and that doesn't work either. So yeah, it's completely bypassed me what the strategy for Blockus is. But yeah, it's good fun, and it's nice being the butt of jokes, but about it not all the time, but yeah. But so I think they're probably ones we've played the most over the last. And Uno is, I know it's a really simple game, but
Uno is a classic.
Yeah, we've had so many. I mean, even when they were kids were little, it was one of those games really young kids can play it and be really good at it, and all the way through to, you can play it with my parents. So
sure,
yeah.
So a couple interviews ago, I talked with a guy who his hidden gem game was a game called Luck Plus, which was from the designers of Uno.
Yeah.
And I tracked it down because that's what I do. And I tracked it down and I got a copy, and I finally got it to table last week. Now, like I said, we have a trophy, but that game is Thursday. Okay.
Yeah.
So we decided to make the non-trophy games a certificate game. Yeah. So I got on Canva and made this hilarious little certificate of winning.
Yeah.
So you could, okay, you won the game. You don't get the trophy, but you get the certificate. But we played Luck Plus for the first time, and it's very similar to Uno.
Yeah.
But then, completely different. And it was really an interesting take on Uno, because you're like, there's no reverse or skip card, but there's stop and go. So it's kind of like Millborn, kind of like, kind of Millborn, kind of Uno. And you're like, and it was a lot of fun. And so it's funny you mentioned Uno, because I was like, I just played the sequel that nobody else apparently liked back in the 80s or whatever when it came out.
Yeah.
But it's really a good game. And so if you ever come across a game called Luck Plus.
I might look that.
Plus.
I'll look that one up. Yeah. Is it so you can still buy it? Yeah, you can still get it.
Oh, you'll have to find it off eBay or something.
Oh, it's second hand. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it came out in 1983, so it's a little younger than me.
I'm going to write it down. Luck Plus.
Luck Plus. Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah, for some reason it just didn't take off, and I'm kind of surprised with the board gaming boom that we're in right now, and the fact that Uno is putting out a whole bunch of Uno Flip and Dose and all these other things that they haven't brought it back.
Yeah, definitely.
So with your board gaming, do you board game at lunch with your coworkers?
No, I don't. I work from home most of the time. And my wife, whilst she is keen on gaming, we never really get a chance to. I think, probably as I say, whenever we get my daughter's away at the moment at uni. When she comes back, what we found recently is that is the kind of thing we do after tea. So we'll get the board game out at night. So I guess default for us is after tea. That's our kind of social time together. Because again, they're very, they kind of go off, and even when she's back, it's kind of difficult to connect because she just wants to sort of speak to her brother and play Mario Karts on the TV, but then we get them to sit down with us after we've had something to eat, and then we play games at night. So I guess that's our kind of version of that social time in the day.
No, I mean, I play at lunch with my coworkers, and then I usually play before bed with my my wife and my son. So I understand.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So if you did play at lunch, what would be your go-to 60-minute game for
60
a lunch
minute.
hour?
Yeah, for a 60-minute game, that's a good question. I'm trying to think of a game Quirkle tends to take us probably around about 45 minutes, yeah, for a good game of Quirkle where and you're not getting rushed into come on, whose go is it, and you're kind of trying to think 4 or 5 moves ahead, and what if I pick up that yellow star in the next bag, and do I just cash in 4 points, or do I kind of hold out for that big 24 pointer that I can see emerging? But so yeah, but sometimes we're a bit more rushed. So I'd probably say that's probably closest. I mean, what an Exploding Kitten's probably in about 30 minutes for a good game of that. Yeah. Blockers, as I say, is just a blur because I don't know what's going on, and then it's just over when it's over because I'm never really sure what's happened in the first place. And then I'm trying to think of another game. We bought another one, and I think I'd spoken to you about this last time. We've only played this a few times, but this is the one where I can't remember the name of it. It's got like a cow on the front of the box, and it's kind of got velour on the front. Have you played that? What's it called? It's like one where you have to basically go. It's a really easy game mechanic because you just got to basically. The question is, what is something like what was the best Star Wars film of all time, and you go around the group, and if it's the majority of people say the answer that you've written down, then everybody wins that. What's it called?
Herd mentality.
Herd mentality. Yeah, which I really like because that is. I mean, it comes with a few bits and bobs. You've got a little squeezy cow and some little pen and some little counters that they give you. But you can, like it says in the rules, you can make up your own questions. It's so easy to play and so easy to kind of create your own content for. I really like that game. So I'm not sure. I can't remember when you get a big group of people. And then the other one that we played a lot actually, which my daughter really likes. And again, I'm sorry, I've forgotten the name of it. Where you have to. It's like it's like passing the message on, but it's like you draw something, and then someone has to work out what you've drawn, and then they have to the next person has to draw what that person's interpretation. What's that one called? I can't remember. Telestration. Yes.
That's a good one.
That is a good one
that's
for.
That's a good one for The Office.
Yeah.
Trying to bring people together and everything. That's a fun one. And
particularly when you go through them, and the more people you've had, and the more kind of distortions of the original message is good. And that's a really good, actually, again, without kind of stealing a corporate idea, a kind of, a game idea that is a really good one for demonstrating the kind of communication breakdown in any organization, and really fun as well when you kind of go back through how on earth did we start with that and end up with that.
How did you get that from Love Seat?
And the more kind of edgy the original sort of clue is, the more kind of humorous it gets, as like it gradually descends into some very strange lines of thinking.
So do you have a hidden gem, a game that you don't think gets enough credit for being as good as it is?
What would that be? Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not really up on what are actually what I do. And actually, I should have said this earlier when you were asking. I will get I'll answer that question. But what I do every year, my kind of standard thing at Christmas is I buy a board game for the family. So I'll address it to my wife and the kids, and it'll be from me to us, and it'll be a board game, and it'll one that I've kind of researched. So I do around Christmas time every year, I kind of do a bit of a research into what are the number one board games. Now I should have done this research beforehand. I'm trying to buy a bit of time so I can actually find the game that we bought a few years ago. We've only played a few times, and not because it was really good. It was kind of quite complicated, and our parents couldn't understand it, but we really enjoyed it. And the whole point. You'll probably go because you got this kind of photographic memory for board games. Let me remind. So it was basically you chose how far you wanted to move forward. It was basically a take on the rabbit and the hare and the tortoise.
Yeah.
You know what it is? Do you know the game? Can you?
No, I know Hare and Tortoise because you're trying to with the carrots and all that.
Yeah, but it was what I liked about it was I'm googling it while we're talking here. So Heron Tortoise board game. It was a German game, and what I really liked about it is you chose how far you. Here it is. How was it called? Oh, it was called the Hare and the Tortoise. I'm overcomplicating it. Yeah, it's called Hare and the Tortoise, and it was and I don't think it won lots of awards. It's
Yeah,
let me choose I've got the right game. Yeah, it is. And basically, you earn carrots by doing certain things, and then you can choose how far you want to move forward, but you have to pay for that with the carrots, and there's all sorts of other subtleties. And I really like that game because it was really clever. Maybe too clever for maybe our family or some of our family members who kind of gave up because they didn't understand it within 5 minutes. But we actually, it's one I'm looking at it now, and I'm going to remind myself I'm going to get that back out again when the kids are back, because we need to play it again because it was.
It's
really
fantastic. Yeah, it won. If I remember correctly, it won the first Spiel des Jahres.
It did win an award, yeah, which is probably how it showed up on my radar of which
Yeah.
would be a good game to buy at Christmas for the family. So
Yeah. It's David Parlett. Yeah, it's he's made a lot of good. He does a lot of card games, and so but yeah, that's a great game. It's a classic game too. It's almost it's funny. It's almost 50 years old.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize
that it was so ahead of its time, and it kind of, like you said, it kind of like the question, it kind of got lost to time, but it is such a great game that it should be and ought to be brought back out and redone. And
because again, from a I mean, I don't think we would ever try and replicate that mechanic in one of our commercial games, because again, we try and make our games like you can pick it up straight away. That required a little bit of thinking, a little bit of kind of rule reading, and what we find with our corporate kind of people, they're too impatient, and their attention span is less than a goldfish. So you've got to kind of get them. They've got to kind of get the game from the outset, or learn it as they go. And obviously that requires a little bit of sort of concentration, which is a challenge. So, but it is. I really enjoyed that. I didn't realize it was so old. So again, my ignorance. But no, I that for me is a hidden gem, and I've just kind of like, I'm going to go and get it out of the cupboard and put it on the table. So next time the kids are back, we remember that's one we've got to play.
Makes me want to go find a copy. I played it out of a board game library when I played it, and now I'm thinking I should go find that game. It's been a couple years, like 5 or 7 years, because of lockdown and the pandemic, and I kind of count that as 1 year. When it really isn't 1 year.
Well, no, someone said to me, it's like kind of like dog years, isn't it? It's like, we kind of, was that only 2-3 years ago? It seems like about 14 or 15, but yeah. And then other things seem as though they were like yesterday. I'd lost something the other day, and I couldn't remember whether I bought it after or before lockdown. And it was just like, that was only 2 years. Surely I could remember something I bought 3 years ago, or like within the last 6 months, and I couldn't. It was weird. Very strange. Time elongation, sort of being socially isolated, is very strange. It's
like when somebody's like, 2020, that was a weird 5 years,
Definitely.
So do you ever dabble on Kickstarter?
Not with games. I've backed a few various things, as we were talking about in the sort of pre-conversation. I'm well into Star Wars, so I backed a book recently that is just. I got a message this morning saying it's just going into print. So I do like Kickstarter. I think it's fantastic. I think it's wonderful idea, but I've never backed any games. But
well, that's a shame.
Yeah, again, it's not through not perceiving their value. It's just through ignorance, probably, or not getting reached out to when people are trying to start these things. Because I need to probably demonstrate. What are you? Is this an invitation to maybe back a game?
Hey, I've got I use Kickstarter for my games.
Yeah.
When we bring games to market, we'll have a new one out this fall.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, do definitely, definitely. No, and I mean, it's becoming a lot more
Oh yeah.
mainstream now as a way of funding these sorts of projects, which I think is great. I think it's wonderful because they wouldn't get off the ground. They wouldn't get backed by a commercial, a normal commercial route. So I think they're fantastic.
So what's the Star Wars book? I'm curious because I just
Mm.
backed a book on Mortal Kombat, the video game, and so I can't even remember the name of the name of it, but it was like this guy's writing like a love letter, I guess, to Mortal Kombat, and I'm like, I want that book.
Yeah. So this book is because I collect Star Wars stuff from like original kind of retro 70s 80s stuff, and this book I'm just opening up the email now and remind me what it's called because it's so long since I backed it, but these guys have done an amazing job. So it's called and get ready for this, The Most In-Depth Guide to the Original Kenner Star Wars Action Figures. That's the name of the book. I think, although it might be abbreviated to the Kenner Star Wars Action Figures book, but it's like basically I know somebody who's seen a copy of it at a convention that was held recently. So it measures, I'm sort of put this into imperial. It's 300 millimeters by 400 meters. So what's that? 12 inches by probably about 15 or 16 inches. Weighs 5 kilograms.
Holy cow!
Somebody said it's not actually a coffee table book. It is a coffee table.
Yeah.
It's got
That's like
400.
That's like 10 pounds.
I know. Yeah, it's got 400 pages, 4,000 images, and it's got pictures of all of the original plastic toys I used to buy for around. It'd probably be like $2 back in the day, which are now worth sort of hundreds or thousands of dollars now. So, it's kind of one of those books that I'll just sit there, and my wife will be, "What on earth are you looking at?" And
don't put that down too hard on the glass coffee.
No,
table.
well, no. The problem is when I kind of backed it, I don't think they published the planned dimensions. I don't think I've got anywhere big enough on my bookshelf that will actually take me. So I'm going to have to modify my bookshelf in more ways than one. Probably strengthen it as well. To take
just go to IKEA and get one of these little shelves and just screw it to the wall.
Well, I've had mixed experience of those things in the past, so I even have to like buttress my shelves heavily with the amount of things that I put on them. But yeah, so no, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting when the postman arrives with it as well, and hoping it's not been because with the weight of it as well. I'm just worried if it's going to end up a bit kind of corners bashed. But yeah. So yeah, that was my last.
They're getting pretty good with that though. Kickstarter backers and fulfillment companies, they're getting really good at like protecting corners and stuff.
Yeah. I'm sure they will. These guys, I mean, they've been really good at sending kind of pictures of the proofs as they've been coming off, and lots of little teasers, which I guess. I think the other things I'm trying to back to a few other things.
What was the first thing you backed? Do you remember?
First thing I backed. I have backed other things in the past. I honestly can't remember. I am really a really kind of thick. It's not that, as I say, I think it's a fantastic thing. But it just has to kind of float my boat, and I have to because I'm quite impatient and I want things, now. And the idea of like, it's going to take like 2 years to maybe get this back. And this thing went to the wire because I remember it was £100,000 they needed to get this thing backed. And it was like 2 to 3 days before they were kind of still only about 60 or 70%. And then there was I don't know whether this is the way Kickstarters tend to go. There was a massive rush at the last minute of kind of thing. I think the fear of missing out thing kicked in, or and anyway they got a huge uplift, and I think they got more than 50% more than they needed in the end, so they've done well. So but yeah,
that happens a lot. They call it the Golden Gate Bridge effect.
Right,
you get a whole bunch at the beginning and a whole bunch at the end, and it kind of makes that parabola.
I see. Yeah. But no, but actually, it is something. I'm always receptive to these things, and I'm on a lot of these kind of Facebook groups, and I guess it's whether they show up on these Facebook groups that I'm in as to whether I know about them in the first place. Because
you got to be careful, because once they get you,
I know.
You enter that marketing. Slow. You enter that marketing, and all of a sudden you're going to get targeted with all kinds of weird.
I know. I think, again, going back into the Star Wars thing, Hasbro have started doing this a lot with. They're launching like these sort of ships that they would never economically make, but and then obviously they give you all of these incentives. If we get 10,000, if we get 15,000, if we get 20,000, we'll add all these extra things. So it's great because then everybody's encouraging their friends to buy it because they want this kind of like upgrade package. So it's clever. It's a clever way of marketing and launching stuff. So yeah, but no, you're right. I probably will get another slippery slope that I'm going to step onto. So yeah.
That'll be interesting. That book sounds awesome. Oh my gosh, though. Holy cow.
It is. It's
like I said, 5 kilograms is 11 pounds.
Yeah, it's a heavy book.
Because we do stupid things.
I know, yeah. I'm only these guys. I think I think one of them is Italian and another guy's English, and so they've kind of gone with a kind of metric measurements on all of these things.
Awesome.
But yeah, I can't wait.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
So when you play games, well, I mean, I guess with the games, with Blokus anyway. Do you have a color that you gravitate towards when playing?
Yeah, I tend to go for red. I don't know why. It's my
because you're the boss and you're
well, yeah. You think, yeah? No, it could be. I don't know. I've always had an affinity with the color red, and I like red. I mean, obviously, some games, Monopoly, I would always go for the battleship. I don't know whether that's so slightly where you can draw any kind of psychometric deductions from the play pieces that people choose or the colors.
According to some books, you can. According to some books, if you want to be viewed as the weak one and the one to not worry about, take the shoe.
Ah, right. Okay. But that could be a subliminal tactic to sort of, fall under the radar. And yeah.
I don't know. The battleship, though.
Battleship's cool. Although if someone's already taken it, the racing car.
Oh, obviously. So you back in the day, all yours were done by Waddingtons, right?
Yeah, Waddingtons, MB Games were really big in the UK. I'm trying to think of some of the other games that we used to have. Palatoy used to do some stuff, but yeah, Waddingtons were a really big name in the game fraternity over here. Yeah.
Well, it was him, and he had that deal with Parker Brothers. And
that Parker Brothers, that's the other one.
And
yeah.
They had that transatlantic trip every year, and they saw what the other one had, and then they swapped game. I'll give you the rights to this, and that's how we got Clue, which is Cluedo for on your side of the ocean.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
that's how we got Clue. That's how you guys got Monopoly.
Yeah.
So it's been. I've had a lot of fun reading. I've got like tons of books over here on the history of board gaming and stuff, and to read about all of that craziness of the early 1900s. Really, what people don't realize is Clue's from the 40s.
Yeah,
and it was designed by a couple people in England during the bombings at night.
Yeah.
So when the Germans were bombing England at night, they were in their bomb shelter designing Clue.
No, I've never thought about that actually. I mean, because it is as kind of an archetypally, if you were say once to date, Professor Plum and Colonel Mustard, you'd say it's probably around the sort of mid-century, so or mid to early 20th century. So yeah.
But they did away with Mrs. White.
Yeah,
they got rid of she's now like Professor or something Scarlet.
Yeah,
or not Scarlet, Orchid.
Orchid. Yeah. But it's a great and I think back to there are the game I mentioned it back at the beginning. I remember a game I used to love playing. It was really kind of basic and not particularly well. It was just very basic. It was a Haunted House. Did you guys ever have that game where you have to drop the ball down the chimney and you don't know where it's going to go?
No, I was thinking of Haunted Mansion. Haunted House.
Whether it's it may have been the same game, but again,
because Haunted Mansion was about the ghost coming out of the stairs and you're trying to in the runner
avoid the ghost.
Yeah.
Well, this was a little bit like Mousetrap in that it was kind of more of a kind of mechanical. You had to kind of build it. You had to sort of build these 4 walls, and it had like 4 rooms. You had a little plastic cowl that went on the chimney, and then you drop. The idea is there were certain places on the game board where you would stand on them, and at that point you'd have to drop the ball down the chimney. It was like 1 in 4 chance it was going to come down your sort of bit of the chimney, and then if it landed on your bit, it like kind of triggered the trap, and you either got thrown in the air or you fell in a hole or something. And yeah, it was. I think it was just the kind of mechanical element of it and this sort of fascination. And it looked like a little house, which I was always into those sorts of things. There was that was one game that I always remember playing. I'm trying to think. I think it was probably an MB game. So Haunted House. And then
look into that one a little more.
Yeah, you'd probably be able to find it. And then the other one I used to remember was the War of the Daleks. So is Doctor Who big in the States, or do people watch Doctor Who in the States? Or
it's kind of in that it's got its own like subculture
niche sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I've kind of avoided it only because I've got enough other things to obsess over. So
yeah.
I don't need one more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing against it. I hear
no. I mean, I don't watch it at the moment because I think it's kind of gone off the boil. But I mean, I used to watch it when I was a little kid because it used to be terrifying. It used to be kind of like hiding behind the sofa, watching with some of the creatures they had. But the Daleks, the sort of the synonymous creatures on that, and they had this game. It was called Battle of the Daleks or Planet of the Daleks or something. And anyway, you basically had all these little Dalek toys that were quite heavy because they had like a lead weight in the bottom, and you would rotate the base of the board game and they would spin around, and if they touched you, you kind of been killed by the Dalek. It was very, very it was like kind of get race to the finish game, but avoid getting killed by these little rotating Daleks. But it was in the age where you didn't have kind of battery operated board games, or if you did, and it was really cool, and to have these things that spun around and randomly when you spun the board around, which was really cool. I just enjoy playing that as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, you find the old IP games from like the 60s and 70s, and it's like it's the Man from U.N.C.L.E., the card game.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah. Just kind of, and that's a funny thing with Star Wars as well, is how they, because the thing with the Star Wars franchise at the beginning, they didn't have any, they were so surprised with how popular the film was, they never even thought about merchandise. And by the time they thought, by the time we get it out, it's going to like nobody's going to want to buy it because the film will have just bombed, or we won't, they'll have forgotten about it, and obviously got that wrong. So the first things they brought out were board games. So Attack of the Death Star and that sort of thing was a really simple way of making cardboard stuff while they were trying to get all these plastic toys made. So, but they're very basic games. But those now on the secondary market, originals of those they don't go for a lot, but they go for kind of interesting prices compared to what they would cost originally.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, there's probably not exactly a whole lot of them out there to be picked up.
No, not and collectors they want them pristine. Even if they've been unopened, the prices that unopened things go for is just crazy.
Yeah, it's funny that like you said, people want things pristine, and a lot of my game boxes are beat to death because I've played them to death.
Yeah.
Like my copy of Klaus Teuber's game. How do you say it? The Settlers of
what? Oh, I don't even know what it is.
Oh man! So
I'm showing my ignorance. I'm showing.
There you go. There you go. Settlers of Catan was a game in 1995.
Catan. Okay, yeah. We talked to
yeah. And my copy of Catan is just I'm trying to figure out if I just need to buy a new one because I have played it. My physical copy of the game has been played over 200 times.
Yeah.
And it's just warped.
Yeah.
But we've got a game shop here in the St. Louis area where they have like this whole like set of shelves that they call the Ding and Dent, and it's copies that aren't pristine.
Yeah.
And you can pick them up for pennies on the dollar, and it's like. Yeah. What's wrong with it? It's got a scratch from like the box knife got it, and it's 40% off.
Yeah. Does it really matter? Yeah, exactly.
I don't care.
It's like our Monopoly. The box lid, the four corners have ripped, so it's basically it lays flat on the table. There's nothing, and all the money kind of spills out when you take it out of the cupboard, and there's all this like dice drop out of the sides of the box. Then it just goes back in the cupboard and then comes out again. So yeah, it's had a long hard life, but yeah, it's been loved and played with.
Oh yeah, I mean, when my wife and I got married, that's when Target had all those special edition wooden box versions of the old Parker Brothers games.
Wow.
So we've got like the wood box. So it looks like a book when you sit on your bookshelf. And like Monopoly and Risk and Stratego and Scrabble are the four we have.
Yeah.
But my Monopoly game from my childhood looks just like yours.
Yeah.
Flat.
Yeah, definitely. There's a good game, Risk. I'd forgotten about Risk. We used to play that a lot when I was at university. I love Risk. It's a brilliant game.
Yeah, Risk is until they changed their rules a couple years ago, and I'm like, this isn't how. Like, I got the game, and my son wanted to play it. I opened it up, and I'm reading the rules. I hadn't played in a while. I'm like, I don't remember this being the rules.
So what have they done? What have they done to it?
Just changed the card mechanic. Something about like the cards. They changed the way those work, and I'm like, and they also changed the opening. Where opening just used to be you placed an army, and then you placed an army, and you placed an army. Now they changed that even, and I'm like, why are we messing with Risk? Like, you want to mess with Risk, call it something else. Don't call it Risk.
Yeah. You need original Risk and like modified Risk.
Right? You can't. Don't mess with that.
No.
I understood Risk. Now you've messed it up. So a buddy of mine and his son, they have like the classic Risk or whatever they have.
Yeah.
And so I play that because I'm like, I understand this version. Like, it's weird when
Yeah. No, I agree.
It's weird when they mess with the classics.
It is, and kind of don't make them any better. That's I can understand if you make a game better, but it's like Monopoly. My kids loved it when they added the credit card feature to Monopoly, so you could have like you could swipe the bank and see how much money you had.
Electronic banking.
Yeah, which it's kind of brings it onto a modern age, and it's not as fun when it's like who's the banker and has the banker been stealing money from the funds or not?
Yes.
Yeah,
they clearly have. They clearly have. There's no way the banker still, there's no way the person with no property still has money. So have you ever with the corporate world that you work in, there's a game, it's kind of a hybrid computer board game, but it's called Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes.
Never heard of it, but it sounds really interesting. I'm going to look that up. Keep talking and nobody explodes.
Yeah, Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. So the premise is we played it over in the office over a conference call, but like not video conference, just audio.
Okay.
And so one person's in one room and they're looking at their computer screen, which is a bomb. And the bomb's got these different compartments and they're puzzles. But the only way to solve the puzzle is to have the book, like the bomb defusing book, which was in another conference room.
Right.
And so you're telling them, hey, I'm looking at this. And you got to describe the puzzle so they can get to the right section in the book. And then it'll be like words. So it'll be like bird. And then you have to type in whatever the response is to bird. And you're trying to diffuse the bomb over, like I said, one person's got a computer and one person's got like a PDF printout of the bomb diffusing manual. And it's a lot of fun. It's kind of frustrating the first few times as you're trying to figure out, like, especially like when I play, my brother showed it to me. And the first few times we played it, I didn't, like, he knew what he was looking at, but I didn't know what I was looking at. And so I'm trying to explain something to him. He's like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And, then the bomb blows up. And he's like, what were you talking about? And I'm like, it's this. He goes, that's called a maze. That's not what it...
That sounds really good.
Yeah, and then there's like the different wires. So they'll have like a wires, and one's like blue with the white stripe, but it depends on what order they're in or what color is on top or bottom of it. And you got to clip the right couple to diffuse that section. It's a lot of fun. And it does get a little, as you're playing it, and you'll feel your heart rate getting up a little bit. Like, we're running out of time. Which wire do I clip? And it's a fun one. So yeah, you might want to look into that one with the
definitely.
stuff you do.
And is that kind of like one where, because you said it's like when you play at work, is there kind of like a transferable, is it designed to emphasize the, communication or teamwork or all of those? So yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Cause you're trying to explain what you're looking at, and you've got to, and then the other person's trying to diffuse it with their manual, so they're like trying to flip through the book and find the right section and stuff, and
Yeah, I like
and
those
then
sorts of things that mimic that you can kind of use to sort of mimic, trying to communicate under pressure, and then kind of sit and reflect and say, okay, it was just a game in that context, but how does that kind of, and that's the very much the logic of what what we're doing is, here's an experience, then how does that kind of compare with how it is on a day-to-day basis? And when people have got that frame of reference, it makes it much easier to talk about it than if you're just saying, why do we not get on in the office? Because then everybody goes, well, we do, we all love each other, even though they maybe not. So it's
I
really
have no idea who they're talking about.
exactly.
Well, that just happened last week in my office. Like, one of the ladies that I play with, she, I was talking with her and she didn't know the project manager. And I'm like, I'll bring him by in just a minute. So I went over, got the project manager, came back and said, this is the project manager. Project manager, meet, this person on the team. And they'd never met, and we work in the same building.
Yeah. Oh, I know. No, it's crazy. It's crazy. And those. So, I mean, and again, I guess with lockdown and things like that, I know. I mean, talking to a lot of people who are saying, I don't even know who these people are because they started, and I've only ever seen them, through a screen, and
yes, yeah, and I've tried very hard to beat those screens down.
Yeah, good.
Because you have to, now, but a lot of these virtual teams now, I don't know. That's going to be an interesting dynamic moving forward. A lot of these virtual teams, like I know some people that live in the middle of nowhere now and work for big companies because they can work from home, and their home is, 2 states away,
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we'll see how all this changing dynamic for sure of the corporate world.
Heard some fascinating stories, and I don't know how many of them are kind of true, but even if they're not, they're funny. But like sorts of people's excuses for not coming back to the office. So when their bosses have said to them, "Hey, I think it's about time you start to show up now. You're this working from home." So one of them that I heard was, "Oh, well, I've bought a dog now, and I need to, and I can't leave it on its own." And then the other one I heard, which was the funniest one, was I can't because I've emigrated. I'm living in a different country now. I was like thinking, okay, fine, fair enough. Do you not think at the point where you actually sort of bought your plane ticket and this, moved, that you might want to let us know that you're kind of, shifting countries, that, part of your contract might have been reasonable for us to expect that you would do that? And yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, I live in Spain now.
Yeah, it was something like that. I can't remember where it was. I've moved to France. Like, okay, fine, fair enough. That's your choice. Well done.
Well, I mean, over there, that's a little bit easier to do, but than over here. But even over here, it's like, I just I ran to a coworker, the next coworker of mine, at the gaming convention, who now lives 4 hours away.
Yeah.
Still working for the same company, but it's all online now. And I'm like, weird.
Wow. I know. Strange times.
Things are a-changing. Well, Craig, I'd like to thank you for being on my show today, and I've had a great time talking with you. We definitely got to keep, definitely got to keep in touch.
Yeah, no, it's been an absolute pleasure, Adam. And as I said, I'll link your show into mine when we get your interview out there, and it's really good to be able to reciprocate, because it's like convergent evolution. We've come up with a similar solution to a kind of common issue, but from very different angles. It's like the kind of how ichthyosaurs and dolphins look the same, even though they're completely different species, because that works, and that shape, when that form works. I think we've kind of converged on a sort of a way of getting people to treat each other as human beings. Interestingly, just before we close, I don't know whether you know about this, but and again, relates to what we're talking about. It's a very different kind of area, but I saw this article this morning. I was looking in an online news thing that I look at, and it's called the Human Library, and it's somewhere. Have you heard this? It's somewhere in Scandinavia. No. Only the Scandinavians would come up with something as cool as this. It's called the Human Library, and what you do is you go to this place and you sit down for 30 minutes and that 30 minutes is with someone who will tell you their life story in 30 minutes. But obviously it's around a particular theme. So you go in and you say, I want to talk to someone who's experienced such and such, and you meet up them with 30 minutes, and someone will tell you their life story in 30 minutes that incorporates what it is. And it's all intended to bring people with very diverse backgrounds together. And they're using it as a way of just kind of humanizing human beings, and getting to talk to each other and actually see how much we've got in common rather than how much we've got different. And again, I know it's sort of a bit of a tangential thing, but I think it's that sort of, if we talk to each other, the world will be a much better place. We kind of fix so many things that need fixing when we just talk to each other and just don't sit in kind of corners throwing things at each other. It's a much more productive and conducive way to live our lives.
No, that sounds awesome. We'll have to look into that.
Yeah, the Human Library. I'll send you a link after we finish the call, and you can have a read of it. I just thought it was what a great idea. And wouldn't it be great if everywhere did that sort of thing?
Bring everybody together? What? No.
What could possibly go wrong? Yeah.
So if anybody wanted to reach out to you or hear your podcast, how can they do that?
Yeah, so they can if they go to the website, which is thebigpicturepeople.co.uk, you can get in touch with us. There's loads of different ways you can get in touch with us there. If they want to connect with me on LinkedIn, it's I think it's Craig Allen Smith. My surname is obviously very common, Craig Allen Smith, and I'm the kind of ugly guy with glasses that you'll see there. My podcast is called Engaging Internal Comms, so it's very much geared towards employee communications and employee engagement. So quite corporate, but if anyone's interested in that sort of area of how we can get people to talk to each other and communicate better to our employees, Engaging Internal Comms, it's on iTunes and all the usual platforms that these things are on. And more than welcome to come along and have a look at the show and see if it's anything of interest there. Of course, your episode will be of immediate interest if you find that.
Yeah. So that's like, again, it's really funny that what Audrey.io is doing is almost like what we're trying to do on a lot smaller, with a different group of people, right? We're trying to bring offices together, and Audrey's trying to bring podcasters together, and then coincidentally, that's how we met and came together. So it's been an interesting thing playing around on Audrey.io. I've met some great people like you, and have had a lot of fun meeting people in different areas of the same subset of trying to bring people together and break those walls down and all that, and keep up the good work. And I will keep listening and following you on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and if you've got you see any interesting Kickstarters, I'm a kind of I'm a vulnerable addict to this sort of thing. So just send it across to me, and I'm sure I'll be taken. So yeah, definitely.
Will do. And as usual, if you want to reach out to me, it's eatlunchandboardgame.com, facebook.com/groups/eatlunchandboardgame, or email me at eatlunchandboardgame@gmail.com. And remember, board games build bridges. This podcast has been a long time in the making. I reached out to many podcasters for their opinions, and I settled on Anchor FM as my host. It's the easiest way to make a podcast. First off, it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Then Anchor will distribute the podcast for you so you can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many, many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, and it's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. I know you have an idea for a podcast in you. Now is the time to make it happen.
Stay in tune with all things sports around Indiana and the nation with the Crash Course Podcast. Each week, we tackle the big storylines from the world of the Colts, Pacers, and the Indiana college scene, while also keeping a pulse on the nation. We record live weekly at twitch.tv/3cmedia and can be found on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard, you can catch the Crash Course Podcast.
When you're gaming, why not be comfy? Go over to supportplayer.org. click on the cards, pieces, and dice to get some merch. These t-shirts are some of the most comfortable I have ever worn. That's supportplayer.org, and there's a link on eatlunchandboardgame.com.